A very warm welcome back if you've just tuned in. We're in KwaZulu-Natal today, and we're speaking about the State of the Province address which was delivered yesterday, in which the Premier, Senzo Mchunu, shared literally the state of the province, the plans that he and his government have for the province going forward, some of the challenges and obstacles that they have to overcome, but also shared a little bit of some of the successes that they've been able to enjoy. Now, before the break, he spoke a lot about the delivery and implementation of some of these promises, and he even mentioned the National Development Plan. Well, my next guest who's joining us for this conversation is the head of the Secretariat of the KwaZulu-Natal Planning Commission, Mr. Brooks. So we've got this wonderful document, this plan that everybody, except a few people perhaps, agreed to, the National Development Plan. And there's always been this danger that this thing will be a plan that sits on somebody's shelf. And how do we make it come alive? KwaZulu-Natal have decided to set up your commission to make sure that this document actualizes in the province. What have you been able to do? Take us through the process so that people get a sense of how this National Development Plan is happening in the province.
Thank you, Peter. No, thank you. And maybe just to put it in context very quickly, the National Planning Commission was established in 2010. And I think we must recognize just firstly the leadership and the vision that our executive and our leadership in the province had at that stage, to soon after that to also insist that there be established for this province a Provincial Planning Commission. So I must recognize I'm not a commissioner, I'm the head of secretariat, so I'm guiding a process. And that particular process involves not just government. Our whole planning process has been built on a foundation of partnership, of bringing in business, bringing in labor, bringing in civil society, right from day one. So even when we started to do the first situational analysis of where the province was in 2010, it was a consensus view at that stage of what the issues are that this province faces. So let me then get on. From there, we then embarked upon a process to develop the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy, sets out our 7 goals, a vision for the province, and that vision we still steadfast on. The vision quite clearly, a prosperous province with healthy, skilled, and secure people, and there's very strong meaning in healthy, skilled, and secure, especially given some of the events that happened this morning. And then being the gateway to Africa. And I think our Premier has already highlighted the fact that our infrastructure, our ports, the airport, our road, our rail infrastructure, gas, water, the pipelines that we have, all of that places us in an extremely strong position to be a gateway. We're not saying we're the only gateway into Africa, but that we can be the primary gateway into Africa from here. And that's what we started to build on. So the 7 goals, and I won't bore you and the listeners with all the 7 goals, but number 1, as Premier already indicated, we need to create jobs. That's the thing. That's what our people keep on indicating to us. We need to do it by growing the economy. We realize that we will not create those jobs for our people unless our people are skilled. And therefore we look at the whole education value chain, from early childhood development to adult literacy, so the whole value chain we attend to. We again realized that you are not going to be able to develop the skills unless the social environment is conducive and produces a human fabric that really would be of such a nature that it can be accommodated. So our people and our communities are absolutely at the forefront of the planning. We realize that we're not going to do that without the infrastructure and infrastructure development, and Premier has indicated how we're coordinating our infrastructure in the province. We're focusing on 12 fields of infrastructure, from ports, harbours, road, rail, water, sanitation, electricity, ICT, education facilities, health facilities, human settlements, and then the broader economic infrastructure for the province. Then once we got to that point, we realized, but hang on, we've got to be careful about the environment. So if what we're doing is not sustainable in the long run, as we see now with the drought, our environmental plans are really being pushed to the limit with the drought situation at the moment, but we've got to be environmentally sustainable. And then all of this is underpinned by good governance. So unless there's a real will and leadership at political level, which we really enjoy in this province, good administration, solid, look at our audits, look at sort of do we have the skills to deliver on this, exactly your question that you asked. So that features very strongly in the plan itself. And then lastly is the issue about spatial issues in the province. We know that we come from an era where we've had strong divisions in the province from the apartheid era itself. The old KwaZulu government area, now in Ngonyama Trust areas, rural development, urban development, how do we do that integration? So all of that is covered in the plan. Now, your question was implementation, Peter. Now, we developed this provincial development plan almost in tandem with the national development plan. We were very fortunate at that stage that we were able to contribute to the national development plan and immediately also draw from the national development plan. We're very proud as KZN to say that 16 days after the national development plan was adopted, our provincial executive adopted our plan. Now, what we've been doing since then is that we're proud of the fact that every year so far we have adopted a revised and refined plan. Every year we have produced 2 implementation reports that says what are our targets, because in the plan we've set targets. It's a 20-year plan divided into 5-year segments. So we've got targets, 2011 plan, targets for 2015, 2020, 25, 2030. So it was important now when we got to 2015 in this particular period now, and at our Lekgotla, and as Premier also announced in his State of the Province address, we've now moved out of the first 5-year cycle into the second 5-year cycle of the plan. And it was important for us to take stock of how many of those targets, where are we? Now, we're not only measuring now in 2016. We've been measuring on a quarterly basis ever since the plan has been adopted. The information we draw from is credible information from Stats SA, Global Insight, all the other recognized sources. This is not just a plan driven by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission facilitates the process. The MECs and HODs are here. So all the departments are part and parcel of the planning process and implementation process. So they report through the structures which the Planning Commission merely coordinates and puts forward. That's why we were able to announce yesterday, the Premier's announcement, we had 6% growth in jobs from 2050, well, in terms of the quarter labor survey, up to the third quarter. We have not really analyzed the fourth quarter survey results that were released yesterday, but as of the third quarter, quarter to quarter in the 2 years, we grew with 6% jobs in the province, despite this declining economy worldwide. And that's what we thrive on. We still recognize there's a lot more to be done, because the 6% growth in jobs does not necessarily translate in a huge move in unemployment. So that we need to do. But we measure, we see that SANRAL has spent 7.1 billion rand in the province in keeping our infrastructure, our national road infrastructure up. You see as you drive here this morning, the huge construction out here. This is the biggest civil engineering construction project in Africa at the moment, right outside Gateway here. Now those are things that all are part and parcel of the plan. And the big thing is not to come up, and Premier also made it quite clear yesterday, as we now get into difficult times, it's not now the time to try and develop new plans. It is to settle down on what we've been doing and doing it better, and ensuring that the resources that are shrinking are now being put really to the priorities. And we almost forced in a situation where we've got to prioritize the priorities to ensure we get it in the right place.
All right. Well, it sounds like you're on top of it. We're going to hear from the citizens now to see how they're perceiving the work that you're doing and some of the things that you've shared with us, Premier. But let's start with our audience here. Don't forget, you at home at Morning Live SABC. That's where you can send your tweets. But let's start here. We have various partners of yours, actually, that are kind of helping you move the province forward. And we'll start with Nkosi PBH Chiliza, who's on table number 17. If we can get a microphone to you, Nkosi.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. It's fine, it's fine.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. First and foremost, as the House of Traditional Leaders in this province, we want to congratulate you and your government on what you have done. If we look back in as early as 80s up to now, we've seen development in our areas, especially in rural areas. But my question is very brief. We want to thank your state of the province yesterday. Really, it touches most of the important things, especially education, health, and rural development. But I want to find out what is the status of the issue of Izinduna in this province. And we want to thank you. We know very well that you had a lot of meetings with Izinduna. This is a burning issue in our province, as we know very well that Izinduna are having a problem in the proclamation that was proclaimed by the president in 2013. I want to know what is the status of the issue of Izinduna. And second question, I want Premier to know what is it that our government is going to do to strengthen the traditional council as a major role players in the rural development. Because we believe as traditional leaders that if we can empower traditional councils, they can play a meaningful role in the rural development. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Nkosi. And because you're Nkosi, you're the only one who's allowed to have two questions. Everybody else is going to have one. And I'm going to take a few questions and then you can answer at the same time. Moses Tembe, table number 3. Moses Tembe. Okay. The microphone's coming to you. Stay standing.
Thanks, Premier and Freaky Brooks. This province could become a model province. We have that opportunity. If you look at the social accord that is working here, the partnership between government, business, labor, and societies, it is quite robust. And we've managed to distill the National Development Plan to the Provincial Growth and Development Plan, working in partnership with the government. The question from our side, really, it's not only implementation, it's the speed of implementation. We would like to know, as business, maybe as social partners, what is the government going to do to engage this car on a super gear?
Speed of implementation. Okay, all right, fantastic. And then our third question comes from Mr. Edward Zuma, table 25.
Greetings to everyone and the Honorable Premier, Mchunu. Mchunu, my Premier, I stand here before you to simply ask a very disturbing question that has been on my mind from 2011. Peter would recall. We were in Isibaya, secondly we were in Hilti. I asked this question again, simply because I was promised and we were told that something would be done about it. It's 2016 today, nothing has been done. I ask again. I was just justifying as to why I'm going to ask this question. Honorable Premier, you've alluded and highlighted in your State of the Province address, which was perfect. I think you deserve a round of applause for that. And you've made mention that you would cut expenditure by 1 billion. To me, as a small fry, as a small business, I am crying, I'm complaining. I've been complaining from 2011. It means since the budget is going to be cut by 1 billion expenditure, as a small business, I'm going to suffer worse. I am going to suffer worse, and a certain clique of those particular people that I do not want to mention, they are still going to benefit double, because there are people that have adopted provincial government departments and it has become their own private companies. They make a turnover of R1 billion from a single provincial department in this province of KwaZulu-Natal. Now, if you then say you are going to cut spending by 1 billion, where do you put that person who has been benefiting, making that particular 1 billion from a particular department? What about me in Ngwamashu, who lives by being a caterer and supplying marquees? What happens to me? Macingwane, we're requesting that you come out clear on these ones, because several and various promises have been made on this. You know, I believe we've been paying too much lip service on these issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Zuma. All right, so 3 important issues. Let's start with the easy one.
The last one.
The speed of allocation, actually, of implementation. How do we accelerate this process? So the plans are there, but I think things need to happen quicker. How do we accelerate that?
Well, one of the things that we realize more and more is that it shouldn't be just a wish that we involve as many partners as possible actively in achieving our goals, because our goals as government are those of the public and the citizens at large. We are fortunate in the province. We're very, very organized business, well-organized business, well-organized labor, and very functional. And the first thing that we have done successfully is to then organize ourselves into the council that involves all the social partners, so that we can talk face to face. We can demand answers on the spot, not through email or fax and so on and so on. We put matters on the table and we seek response in the same meeting or the next meeting. And one example is business in the form of the coalition group, which is a representative body of all the chambers in the province as of now, has been the complaint about the environmental impact assessments that take long once you have applied and you want to do something. And I can tell you that in the last meeting we had about 3 weeks ago, a business came in one voice that there has been progress on this matter. We haven't done everything, but substantial progress is visible, and we agree. So that is one of the things that we're doing to speed up economic development and implementing things and not end up with promising.
Okay.
And I think, therefore, the message is that the more we work together, the more we understand everything that works or has potential to work for all of us.
Okay.
And this is what exactly we're doing in the province.
All right, and then in course it says the state of Izinduna and the province, as well as government strengthening the role of the traditional council, I think. Yeah.
Well, KwaZulu-Natal has quite a number of amakos, up to close to 300. And on top of that, we have His Majesty the King in the province, which is not normally found in other provinces. Of course, does exist. This institution does exist strongly in other provinces. So this is one of the provinces where this institution is firmly entrenched, and it is there. So firstly, we realize that that's the case, and therefore we must work on a particular understanding, and the understanding is that we are not going to be competing, we are going to be complementing one another, and that is firmly established. And fortunately, when the new constitution was adopted, it formally accepted the existence of Amakosi, and therefore you have a house and at all levels. That's the first thing. Second, it is strength. At provincial level, you have Nkosi Chiliza, who is chair of the traditional house, the House of Traditional Leaders. At district level, you have the district house of traditional leaders. Even at local municipal level, they are recognized, their voice is heard, we interact with them even directly, right down to individual Nkosi. And we think that more and more understanding is being created, and we've tried to synergize the working of the municipalities with Amakosi so that they don't compete, they don't clash, right, but they complement one another. And I think the framework itself speaks volumes about what we are doing in terms of strengthening them. We may not have a particular budget for this house and that house, I mean in the form of, in a manner that we would have loved, because the system of government doesn't necessarily allow that. But in terms of input from Amakosi, direct to government at all levels, that one is working very well. And we need to strengthen that more and more. Yeah.
Okay, and this is an interesting question. And when I was looking at your speech, I also was quite puzzled by the idea on the one hand, you have to cut R1 billion, and then on the other, you said you need more funding to grow jobs. How do you do both?
Well, Ngamalala I would tell him that ever since we got to know that there is going to be a cut, and we knew the numbers, more than R1 billion in the first year, and it would go up and up to 3 billion in the third year in the MTF. We have said economy, contrary even to the kind of directive that came nationally, that you cut economic development, you cut Premier's office in particular, and so on. We have looked at this with caution, because one of the things that are done by the expected to be done by the Department of Economic Development in the province is to make sure that your SMMEs, your cooperatives, are put in the forefront of economic development. That's where most of your jobs come from, not only in South Africa, not only in Africa, elsewhere in developing economies. You will find that they rely more on the creativity of SMMEs. We have realized that, and we have said, look, we debated the better part of what it was Thursday, very, very kind of heated debate amongst ourselves, the MSc for Economic Development, Finance, and myself. And we're saying, no, look, let's cut this and that, but look, don't do anything on anything that has potential to grow the economy of this province at that particular level. And that is where it counts most. So much as 1 billion is cut, but our efforts towards strengthening SMMEs and cooperatives, we are absolutely cautious. So I would say what Ngamalala needs to do is to, here's our numbers, is to come directly to us so that we hear about this grievance which has lasted for so many years, and we can address it face to face, because this is what we are now doing in the province. Talk face to face.
Who can he talk to?
I will tell you.
Let's set up the appointment now. Who can he talk to?
Pardon?
Who can he talk to? We want to set up the appointment now, so we make sure that it happens.
Yeah, we can set up our appointment now. I will tell you one example that was done by the leadership of the Durban Chamber of Commerce. Of course, under the leadership of Babu Dembe and other role players, Kapila is here. They had a problem of realizing an investment, a very, very valuable investment in Mpumalanga, because the land that they had identified, almost the only land that they could realize their dream, was designated as agricultural land. What they did a very pragmatic thing. No email, no fax, no PA. They came to us directly. We sat with them in 2 meetings. It was a very, very heavily involved kind of engagement. We looked for the Minister of Agriculture directly and the Deputy Minister of Agriculture. We got them directly to come to KZN, and we went to Johannesburg ourselves. We engaged face to face. We got answers face to face. Letters came after. That development, which is about 6 billion or something, is up now with quite a lot of development involving various businesses, and it's going to create jobs. It's going to create. It has always actually created
what you're
jobs.
saying is that you are accessible and that you're making yourself available for these kinds of engagements.
Not only accessible, directly accessible.
All right. Okay. Okay. The other part of his question, which is quite important as well, is this perception or reality that there is a bourgeoisie that is eating well from associations with certain departments, certain parts of your provincial team, and that these guys they're doing really well, small guys getting pushed to the side, and that maybe even parts of government has been captured by powerful individuals.
Let's agree that the best approach in any economy, particularly on emerging economies, is to divide the cake and divide the cake equitably. And where government experiences weaknesses as far as this is concerned, subjectively or otherwise, come to us directly. Let's say, look, Premier, look, MSc, so and so, the cake is not equitably divided here. These are my points. We will address that. Some of it will be legacy of the past, and some of it will be weaknesses either in a municipality or in a department. I don't deny that. But what is most important is to point out issues as they are and not go sideways and say, look, so-and-so has a bigger cake and has been having this bigger cake for so many years. What are you doing about it? You will get an answer, and it will be very direct, and it will be that we need to have a working relationship, a functional relationship, and that is what is going to build this province. And let us be upfront. We are making a commitment and undertaking. We are not attached. We are not in the clutches of any individual or any particular grouping in the province. We are on our own, and we are not afraid to say that. So come to us, we'll deal with the matter.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to get your questions from the floor here, but also you at home via Twitter. And I'd like to ask Mr. Brooks as well, that when he was setting up this provincial plan, there wasn't a plan for cutting 1 billion rand. How are you going to overcome that? All of that coming up after this.